You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network. New shows every day. Find us at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.
DraftKings Sportsbook is the only more favorite sportsbook, but also
in English.
America's top-rated sportsbook.
Trying to make money here.
All right, I might have to do more of an American accent. Speaking of America, our top athletes are over in Tokyo, Japan, competing for gold. DraftKings has a medal-worthy offer just for our listeners. It says my, but there's two of us. Listen to this. Place any pre-event wager of $1 to be eligible to cash $100 in free credits if America wins any medal this year. Even a bronze, which I call dirty gold. That's 100-1 odds on an American athlete to stand on the podium, receive gold, silver, or dirty gold this week. 101 odds on an offer like this doesn't come around often, and that's because the Olympics are only like every 2 years. Because, but anyway, so sign up DraftKings Sportsbook now to get in on all the action.
I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It's easy to navigate. There's plenty of instructions for new bettors, nearly limitless ways to get in and score. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you're going to too. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits if America wins a medal. That's code THPN to turn $1 into $100 in free credits for a limited time only. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Welcome to episode 69, season 2 of Red Wings Rant, hosted by the Brothers of Discussion, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. Of course, Red Wings Rant, where tirades and impassioned pleas for your Detroit Red Wings finally have a home. Mike, today we're going to be discussing the nicest possibility to result from this offseason, of course, to celebrate episode 69. We're going to do all the ins and outs of Elias Pettersson, what an offer sheet is, how they work, what's going on in Vancouver, and if it's actually possible to land a Pettersson contract over in Detroit. Mike, episode 69, like I said, wanted to talk about the nicest result I could imagine.
Filling some holes.
Absolutely.
Filling some holes on the 69th episode here of Red Wings.
And honestly, like, just to talk about the Elias Pettersson offer sheet, when you talk about, the types of things that are going one way or the other, once an offer sheet is completed, and let's say the Red Wings get Pettersson, the amount of things that we give to take him from Vancouver's roster, it truly is the 69 of any hockey transaction. So, I mean, that or a trade, but honestly, sometimes you feel like you're really, you're not getting it all back.
Yeah, here's what I think we should do, man.
Yeah.
We've been bringing this up for a couple weeks now. In all likelihood, we're not going to do it. You're going to find out why here as we go into the details of what it takes to pluck a player who's a restricted free agent of Elias's caliber. But Matt, we've circled one name. It's Pettersson. Matt, what is so appealing about this guy that we would even toy with this idea of giving up so much for him? What is so appealing about him?
I mean, I saw it actually in a tweet earlier this week. I wish I could remember who saw it, but it's just one of those things where it's not the first time I saw it. It's been thrown out before, and it's something that is the easiest way to define what this guy is going to be able to do for your future and your hockey club. But there was mention this past week of, how long it had been since Pavel Datsyuk had left the Red Wings and how heartbreaking it was. And this person was feeling quite old, and also said how impossible it was to ever fill the Datsuk void. And the response was, no, Elias Pettersson, offer sheet him, and you have Magic Man 2.0. So what we're talking about here is a guy with a lot of offensive skill, a fantastic two-way forward, and something that at 22 is very difficult to find. So, like you put it, we've been talking about this for weeks for good reason, because this is something that doesn't come along very often. And as we get into this episode, we're going to talk about a couple of different things that have popped up for Vancouver in regards to trying to nail down what is the contract that makes most sense for Elias and for Vancouver. And you can turn around and, as a Detroit Red Wing, as Steve Yzerman, and say, going a couple million above that is very affordable for my team right now. And that would make all the difference in the world, because, Mike, we're all about this 2022 draft. And it's because there's a couple of top line centers that are available. I mean, if you really, some people are already crossing Lambert off, which I saw Mr. Pronman himself from The Athletic is saying he's going to be good, but not Shane Wright good. So since we've been talking about Shane Wright since this show started, clearly we're trying to say this is how important a first line center is. So if you're playing the Elias Pettersson game, and as we've talked about before, you're always trying to cross off these, positions. You're making this battle every offseason to get, a couple of, not only like a first line center, but you need to get somebody who's elite. And you look at like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who can roll with a couple of different elite centers. You got to start checking off those boxes sometimes. And when an opportunity like this pops up, rumors start swirling, we get excited, and is the possibility of it happening super high? I mean, Mike, nobody ever moves by an offer sheet. The last one I remembered was that baloney offer sheet, and we've talked about this one before, from the Montreal Canadiens, where they tried to snatch up Sebastian Aho and gave a very reasonable, affordable contract to him, and Carolina Hurricanes just said, yeah, that's fine. Come on. Yeah, he's a Hurricane. No problem. So it's just all of these ideas and opportunities mixed together where you could rationalize overspending on Elias Pettersson right now, because you see what the future could be. And it's something, too, that's very hard to find in the draft. You either luck out. I just brought up the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you've got a Braden Point where you can kind of cross that off as lucking out. So maybe you want a Stamkos, and maybe this is how you pick up a Stamkos, but you're also looking to, one day accidentally run into a Braden Point, and you just don't do that. Like, it just accidentally happens. It's not something you plan for. You hope for it. But this is one of those things you don't have to hope for. You cross it off the list. Boom. That's probably 6 minutes of me explaining a guy way too long to people who are already in love with this idea.
Yeah, but I think because he's so young, if you're not watching, a lot of hockey, a lot of Vancouver hockey, you might not, you might not know how excellent he is. But I think for you to drop a comp like Datsuk, Matt, knowing your affections for the Datsukian one, it's a pretty high endorsement for you to drop that. I think I guess we're painting the picture here. You're getting a highly skilled centerman, and the Red Wings, if anything, with this roster construction, we know the defense looks like it's going to be in pretty good shape. I think we feel pretty good about the goaltending for the present and for the future. Feels like we have some pretty good wings that we can rely on, but center, that's probably our gaping 69 hole that we got to get filled. So now that you've sold Red Wing fans on, listen, you're getting, is he 22?
Yep.
He's a 22-year-old Datsuk. My God. When we drafted Datsuk, I want to say he was, I don't know what, 20?
50?
No, he was 20. I remember that. But it felt like it didn't feel like we had him for as long as we could have. And this guy's already producing at a high level in the NHL. So, I mean, you're already getting a guy who's prepared for, the actual National Hockey League game. So it would be a hell of a get. So Matt, what you'd have to do is sign this offer sheet to get this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's a restricted free agent. So you tried to put together a little bit of a recipe of what it would take. So we can negotiate with him currently. I mean, we've already opened that window. I think that opened. My God, is that back in June?
No. This is you're looking at. I stole the dates here from the previous seasons, so this is just a catch-all. So when we're in a normal year, so basically what you're seeing here is you could technically start negotiating, but all the rules change this season, at least timing wise. But in a normal year, you should be able to start negotiating 4 days ahead of time. But you can't really come to.
Let's do this. We know that he's a pretty good player, right? So we know we'd have to offer him a pretty good number to even make him interested to be a Red Wing. What kind of draft compensation would we be expecting for somebody of this caliber?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, right? Because a couple of ideas I want to throw out there. There's actually different things we'd be giving up, but I think it's fair to say we start in. Let's see, how many tiers are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 tiers. So I think we're pretty comfortable in saying we're going to be jumping into tier 5 at the very least, and that's giving up a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. And one of the things we kind of glossed over, I kind of wanted to start and define, an offer sheet is a signed and binding contract offer presented to a restricted free agent player whose rights are currently held by another club. Any team other than the team that currently owns the player's rights can submit an offer sheet with the goal of signing that player. So once the offer sheet is submitted, we're also talking about the acceptance by said player. And that's what we were talking about. You have a few days before, actual in a normal year, you have a few days before free agency starts before you can actually do it. Player can sign the offer sheet again on the first day of free agency, which is clearly past us. Now, like a couple of things here, and this is why we all started doing the math and trying to figure out, can the Red Wings do an offer sheet, was part 2 after having that realization that Pettersson was available. But this is, to your point in discussing what draft picks have to be given up for these type players. It's where we can manage this at tier 5, tier 6, and tier 7 for what needs to be given up. And just to kind of define everything for everybody in regards to how these draft picks work, because some people I've seen online have been talking about trading for picks or giving up picks in different years. But you not only have to have all the picks we're about to discuss, all the draft picks are required as compensation must be the club's own draft picks. The draft picks must be available in the nearest entry draft unless the compensation requires 2 or more draft picks in the same round. An extra year can be used to compensate for these picks. So as we talk in a minute here about what needs to be given up, the idea of a couple of first-round picks or 4 first-round picks, you can go into 3 years to grab from those first-round picks, or you can go into 5 years to grab those 4. If an offer sheet is proposed in which multiple draft picks from the same round are required, the additional draft picks may be sourced from the immediately succeeding drafts in which the draft picks are available. So that is to say, if you do have the 5 years of first-round picks, you still need to do the most recent ones. And then if you have one missing in the middle, that's where you jump into, I don't have one for year 3, but I jump into year 4 and grab my first-round pick. And a club is permitted to present multiple offer sheets so long as the club has all of the picks required to satisfy each offer sheet. So clearly, you're not throwing around a bunch of offer sheets to elite level restricted free agents, because at some point you're going to run out of first round picks. So that's, why would we do a full episode revolving around this? One is to make sure everybody's fully informed in how this works. But 2, it's just that, again, everything kind of makes sense this year. We could do that. We have all the space in the world. And again, when you're talking about, we just mentioned the 4 first-round picks, which would be that 7th tier, and we'll go over that in just a second, what exactly those are. You're going to have 4 first-round picks because you're hoping to land an Elias Pettersson. So that's where this conversation continues. So, Mike, you ask. Here we go. Tiers 5 through 7. Right now, these are estimated numbers, so we're going to kind of go roundabout this number to this number. This is the compensation you are returning to the team you're stealing from. We'll put it that way. Okay. Mike, it's about 6.1 million to 8.2 million. You're giving up a first round pick, second round pick, and a third round pick. That's tier 5. Tier 6, again, this is what the Red Wings would be given to Vancouver. This is 8.2 million to 10.2 million. This is where you're getting the multiple draft picks. This is 2 first round picks, a second round pick, and a third round pick. And Mike, the final tier 7, 10 million and up. Basically, 10 million point 2 and up is 4 first round picks. I will say, with those rules that you can bounce into an extra year, every single team in the league is able to do that right now. Any team would be able to compensate the Vancouver Canucks. Can't actually say that for the tier 5 and tier 6, but because of the special rules, you can. In tier 7, every team could do it. And this is according to Cap Friendly. So I'm going to throw that little asterisk on there in case anybody's thinking, hey, my team can't pull off that offer sheet right now. All right. So that's how this is really working out. I feel like we've gone over all the details for the offer sheets, and now we can kind of go over in like the details of what's going on with Vancouver before Detroit, sees this as a viable option. And then we'll go over a couple of options that I see. But Mike, I don't know. How do you want to jump? How do you want to jump in here? Because I'm talking a lot, but Elias Pettersson scuttlebutt is how I kind of broke up our next little talking point. And this is basically how am I going to come up with these different options? That's our next section. But it's going to start with you getting a better idea of Elias Pettersson and where he stands with league executives and agents. In the NHL, who work in the NHL, spoke to The Athletic and Tom Drance and Harmon Dial. So, Mike, I brought him up earlier. It was Braden Point. Now, they're referencing Braden Point's previous contract, but this is their 2 comparables to Elias Pettersson right now. And we've talked about both of these guys a ton. Again, Braden Point. Number 2 is Matty Barzal from the Islanders. The conversation starts there because they think the Canucks are going to start with like a shorter term and then tell Pettersson to, earn that larger contract. And they're talking about numbers around 6.75 to 7 million. Now, when they started talking to the agents, Mike, this is where they came up with the numbers between 7.2 million and 8 million. So anybody that's taking notes right now, you go back and you look at the compensation for something less than 8 million is extremely affordable from an offer sheet perspective. So again, this is coming from an article by The Athletic, speaking to agents who run, NHL player contracts. Now, just another comparable, just to keep everybody informed, we bring up Evolving Hockey all the time in their contract model for predictions. They're predicting a 3-year contract at 5.95 million. So basically, that is coming up because of the production that Elias puts out there and the type of player that he is, the minutes he gets. That's how this model is drawn up. So there's a lot of different analytics that go into predicting a player's number, and that's just good for Pettersson that he's not going to arbitration because he'd get he'd be a smoked sausage for sure. I should mention, that is not the situation for Pettersson. But just to kind of continue here, then again, this is the Pettersson scuttlebutt that's going to help inform our next couple of offers here. But Vancouver has 2 huge contracts to finish up this season: Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. Quinn is projected to go between 5.1 million and 6.5. Bigger range there than the more sure number, I guess you would put down for Pettersson. And with Vancouver's 14 million in cap space as it stands right now, even at the best situation for the 2 numbers I just mentioned for Quinn Hughes, so Vancouver pays him 5.1 million, leaving as much money as possible to sign him this season. That leaves 8.9 million, which either means Vancouver's got to make some more moves, which they would, I think, still have an opportunity to do a buyout. and of one of their players, or they're going to have to trade somebody to make some space. But either way, this is a tough situation for Vancouver, and there's a couple of different ways you can just price them out. And if Pettersson's willing to do it and he's ready to sign, you can steal Elias Pettersson because of the Quinn Hughes situation, and maybe because of where these other agents and the analytics suggest Pettersson should be paid. So, Mike, I think I just talked for like 20 minutes.
So I have a question, Matt. The tier 5 with it's like I found one chart that says the like it compares 2020 to 2021, and how the average annual value dropped. Obviously, because of the pandemic. And it said it was 6.1 million to 8.2 million. Is that the 5th tier you had?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the one with a first, a second, and a third.
Correct.
So the Red Wings could submit 8.221 at 463.
Yeah.
And only have to give up 3 picks.
Correct.
But Vancouver could just say, well, we'll just match that. You're good.
Right. And this could be something too, like if they're all set with Quinn Hughes, like he doesn't have to worry about offer sheets based on how many years he's been playing in the game. And I believe arbitration is not an issue either for Quinn off the top of my head. So they could just wait. They could just say, let's figure out the guy who's the real problem here in Pettersson, and then we'll figure out Quinn Hughes before the season gets rolling. Because I think if they showed their hand and what's going on with Quinn Hughes, that really helps. I mean, the likes of Steve to really figure out, all right, how do we make these guys? How do we squeeze them? Right? How do we make it impossible for them to either catch up, or do they have to come to us and say, please, God, do not take Elias Pettersson?
Let me ask you a question, because I feel like these rules with the draft pick compensation, the teams that it really handcuffs are the teams that are in the same, I hate to use that word again, tier, the same like spot in the standings as the Red Wings, where giving up a first or, God forbid, 2 first-round picks would be devastating to your future. And I guess it's kind of surprising that more good teams don't say, what do we care about, pick number 30 in the first round and pick number 30 in the second round and pick number 30 in the third round. It kind of surprises me there isn't more of a frenzy, for better teams here to just throw away, garbage picks at the end of the first, second, and third round.
But you got to remember, too, the teams that are up there, they don't have the cap space to unload $14 million on a single player. So they've got their own elite guys they've got to worry about. I mean, it would have to be a perfect situation. There'd have to be a retirement, and then also the NHL not being the NHL where everybody's buddy-buddy and they're, just going back and forth, grab assing, and I'm not going to take your guy. Don't worry about it. It's the NHL. We love each other. I might need to trade with you someday. God forbid I make you angry.
Well, it's like, I guess looking at what the compensation is, if it's going to be that exact of a dollar amount, and you could just offer that max of tier 5,
give it a shot.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't, just throw your hat in the ring like every year to get somebody who's 22, 23, 24, and that good of a talent. There's Pettersson's every year, but it's just a surprise that there aren't more teams that just say, fuck it, let's do it.
Well, let's put that one on the back burner, because there is an offer I have that is almost exactly that, and then we go into a deeper conversation. But the first one I think is the easiest one to put out there, because we don't go into the 4 first-round draft pick tier, and it does make things quite difficult for Vancouver. So I don't think in any way, shape, or form this is a sure thing. They'd still reasonably, be able to get Quinn Hughes going in his contract and keep Elias and take this number. They'd just be, if Elias didn't work out, they'd be hurt by this. Same as the Red Wings, but of course we just have way more cap space. But the first offer is just in the range, probably going below that 10.2, but $10 million for 5 years. This means the Red Wings are giving up 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. And a lot of people have not enjoyed the Elias Pettersson conversation because they don't want to give up 4 first-round picks. As we already mentioned, Vancouver, at its very best, is going to have like $8.9 million. So, of course, they can move things around and get up to this $10 million, cover their butts, keep Elias Pettersson on the team, and they just keep rolling, and this offer sheet is gone. But I think this at least puts us in this range of if we land them, we're not completely ruined in the future. And, you think about the rules too. We are going to lose a second round pick and a third round pick this upcoming season. So the very next season, we get those second and third round picks back. We're just down a first round pick. And, I think there's still some space on the Red Wings roster right now to move some guys and cross your fingers that you might be able to pick up a first anyway at the trade deadline. And we've had those conversations already about, what is the Kaiser Nick Leddy fetch if Moritz Seider truly is Moritz Seider that we saw over in the SHL, and he can, what if he assimilates perfectly and he's just going to elevate these guys? I mean, I'm having fun here. I'm spitballing. But if that were to happen, that's where we get in the conversation of Steve being able to reload any of these lost draft picks. So it's still a loss. And you are, right there. There's your cornerstone. There's the guy you are paying the big bucks to. But you've locked down, I would say, probably the hardest thing next to goaltender, next to having a Carey Price. But you've locked down your first line center for 5 years. Feels pretty good. We might only get 1 year to roll off like a Stanley Cup run if he decides he doesn't really like it here in Detroit. But hey, that's how you roll. But there is a riskier route, Mike. But you for sure get Elias Pettersson. And we talked about this one. So it's a 1 year deal. Mike, you just max it out, or you just, kind of max it out as best you can, but maxing it completely at this point, according to Wikipedia, so we know we can trust it, $16.3 million right now for the NHL would be as high as you could go. Vancouver will not be able to match that. They would have to move so many pieces. And you just go 1 year and you figure out the rest of the contract later. Now, we just talked about things that never happen in the NHL. Mike, this would never happen. This is a 1 year deal. Just blowing out, the sides. I mean, is Elias Pettersson really going to, under the table, shake hands with Steve and go, yeah, I'll play for $16 million this year. And then I tell you what.
Well, the next year, a little more normal the year after that. I know.
Now, this is where you look at it and you guarantee, Vancouver can't match. Or you're really putting them in quite a pickle for some reason. And the only thing is you do this one, and there it is right there. There's your 4 first round picks. Bye-bye.
I don't know how else to compare that to other sports, right? Because maybe in the NFL, you've seen a deal or two where you get a quarterback for 1 season and you just max him out, at $30 million or something. And then, the year after that, you just kind of figure it out. But 16 mil and 4 first round picks is it's quite a sacrifice, Matt. It's just, I can't get over that the compensation for a really good player, if you can just get 8,221, 463. I mean, when you're doing an NHL draft, you're trying to get a Pettersson, hopefully one out of the entire draft. And instead, what we're saying is, listen, you can still have all your other picks that, you've acquired. You can still have all your picks after the third round. It just means we're going to guarantee you have a guy who's performed at the NHL level, but you have to give us 3, 1, 2, 3. It almost seems like now I'm actually going to be mad if the Red Wings don't put in an offer sheet for this guy, because the way the ping pong balls have fucked us, past 3-4 years we've dropped every single time.
Yeah, we haven't moved up yet.
What are we really losing? We're drafting to find this center, and instead of crossing our fingers that the ping pong balls go our way, crossing our fingers that there is a team changing, culture changing center available at the top of the draft, you can just have one. Here you go. He's ready to go. He already knows how to play. He's got a jersey number and everything. Here you go.
And I like AJM Patriot thrown out there. Pettersson, oh boy, Vancouver fans would not be happy. The last one we want to throw out there, I think, is the reasonable one. I think this is how you Yzerman this. Is you go the 8.2 million, Mike. That you do basically what you've been bringing up here. Why don't you go under, what would be that 6th tier? Go to the 5th tier, because at that point you're giving up a 1st round pick, a 2nd round pick, and a 3rd round pick, and you're basically trying to all right, if Quinn Hughes comes up high, let's say he goes into that $6 million range, this becomes something that Vancouver can't afford. So right there, you're putting yourself in a position that you could actually make this work out. You're only giving up a 1st, 2nd, and a 3rd. But the other part of this too is Vancouver's still able to try and get this, to work. You could have the idea that this offer sheet is going out there, but Steve Yzerman has the ability to call Vancouver and say, hey, I'm going to put this in. If you want to not have me put this in, you can send something my way, including some draft picks, and I won't do diddly squat, which for all we know has happened before. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but what I mean by for all we know this has happened before is that these conversations don't necessarily need to make it to a newspaper. So, the offer sheets don't happen year after year. Maybe this is why. The likes of the teams that have the money, call them up, hey, and then we get these trades that make 0 sense and draft picks go one way or the other, and the compensation going the other way just isn't reasonable, and that could be it. That could just be one of those things that NHL GMs, it's like Roswell, right? Only once you become president do you find out if Roswell, if there really are some aliens hanging out over there. But yeah, this is my favorite thing so far.
Can we,
Iron Man Ryan? This is not his proudest fap. Ryan, if I may, I'm wearing sweatpants right now, and there's a reason why we brought up this topic, and my camera only goes waist high. So have a good time, my
Pettersson. Man, Pettersson skates out to number 13. You're gonna be fapping constantly. Let me just say.
Here we go. And this is true too. The moment Steve pulls the trigger on him, the Wings get some lottery luck. We know it's going to happen. Vancouver's going to get the 1st pick. They're going to get Shane Wright, and then, Elias Pettersson will get hurt. And
I just,
but don't you want to see? Don't you want to see Steve try
Alonzo
it? Right?
has a point. It's going to happen, right? If we make this move,
it will.
We're going to win the lottery back-to-back years. But it's ridiculous for us to keep crossing our fingers and praying that's what's going to change this team when there's a perfectly good opportunity right there. It's the risk reward is on our side to take Pettersson rather than maybe we'll win the lottery and maybe in 4 or 5 years whoever is drafted at the top will be pretty good. We know Pettersson is a guaranteed product. He's excellent at a very young age. And you would just be punting on one draft, right? With the number that we'd be throwing out there. So if you punt on one draft and you would have been gunning for a center anyway, it's almost madness not to try. And I'm wondering as these negotiations keep dragging on, if they're waiting for other teams to, throw their sheets out there.
And I just want to bring up one thing, because this is something I think is important. Iron Man Ryan, I love that you're here in the chat, my man. I don't think we need Pettersson. It's too early in the rebuild. Once we're closer, there will be solid free agents and lots of cap. I hate free agency so much because you always have to overpay to get guys. This is a situation where you're going to be overpaying for a guy that looks to be a sure thing, elite, and he's young. And every other time you sign a free agent, you're signing a guy that's 28, 29 and up, and you're overpaying by a couple of million based on the fact that their performance is going to start to tank. And I don't know. For me, if I'm going to be spending my money willy-nilly, I think I grab an Elias Pettersson, and I don't know if I'm even really holding my breath at that point. But I like spending my free agent money on something like Elias Pettersson, who's young and could work out. Where like if you're going to overspend, that's where I justify this, as opposed to the overspend that we've seen actually just occurred on free agency day.
I mean, this isn't this isn't Mike Hoffman. This isn't Darren Helm or just the who's who that were available this season, right? Don't say Ovechkin. That's not real. Maybe you had a shot at Dougie Hamilton, but like you were just saying, these are all guys who are in their 30s. You're getting them on the back nine of their prime, if they still have any prime left. This is a totally different animal, right? This guy, he's so young and he's so good already. This is a game changer. Like this, if this guy was in the draft, he would obviously be the number one pick. A couple of years in a row now. Like now we're kind of unearthing him and just wow, what an asset. It's a different conversation. So I think I wouldn't put it in the same realm as what's going to be out there for unrestricted free agency in a couple of years, because like you just said, it's guys who are just signing their last contract and they're already past their prime. So you're paying them for things that they've already done. Whereas with Pettersson, we're paying him for his prime years when he's 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Like we want to get him, like we'd be paying him a long-term contract and he might not even be 30 when it's done. Like that part of his career, we would have ownership over. So that's why I think this is a real something to consider, because we have prospects that are knocking on the door, and if we have a guy leading us like this on that top line, woo, that really gets that Red Wing reboot fast tracked into you can almost start saying the P word for playoffs.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I want to really lay into is one of these deals where it's like, let's see what happens. I don't need to guarantee that we get Pettersson and we lose 4 first-round picks. I do like the idea of maybe the third deal and the first deal we brought up. I do have to give a quick shout out. Tristan is throwing out some ideas of trading back to Vancouver and getting couple of firsts in return, and I did want to go deeper into this, but Mike, we already promised ourselves we would be done recording 10 minutes ago, so we do have to run. Tristan, my man, you have a message in your YouTube inbox from us, so make sure to reply. It's admin@bodpodcast.com, and we'll get a conversation going there, and then yeah, thanks for everybody else tuning in. Sorry we are running right now. Mike's 15 minutes late, kind of what he needed to do. So, Mike, thanks for hanging out. All right,
Matt, this is the most interesting thing left for the Red Wings. It's not a depth guy filling out, the Griffins. Is Steve actually going to make a move? We still have the cap space. We could still potentially make it happen. And God damn it, these ping pong balls are not our friend.
So just cross it off the equation list. All right. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. It's at BOD Hockey on Twitter, brothers_of_discussion on Instagram. We do have our shop on bodpodcast.com, brothersofdiscussion.com. It is on the homepage. We've got our Retire 73s, the Red Wings Rant t-shirts, the Red Wings Rant mugs. It does do a great deal to help us as we're rolling along here. And thank you for everybody who's a recent subscriber. We are the #1 YouTube show from the Hockey Podcast Network, easily by a country mile. So thank you so much for everybody who has been tuning in over the last month. We really appreciate it. And hey, we'll just keep on rolling here. And yeah, sorry we're signing off quick here, but gotta go.